I am hot, and I don't mean that in a Tinder greeting kind of way. I mean 33 degrees, no working air conditioner kind of way. So I'm probably going to turn the camera off and narrate most of this from the inside of my chest freezer, if that's all right with you. The topic today relates to automatically converting multiple Office documents to PDF. Now I'm covering this video because I've seen so many variations on this question, including converting a bunch of email attachments, scheduling a library of files at the end of the day, or conversion from a mobile Power App, or having a button in Teams to run the process. So there will be a video index in the description where you can jump to key areas, but the key thing is I'm not going to assume anything from the audience here. Starting with, did you know you can convert standard Office documents directly from the Office applications themselves? That includes Word, Excel and PowerPoint. If you didn't, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, see you later, you're happy. Now for the rest of you, you know that doing this manually ties you to the desk for a long time, so we will automate the whole process. When you drop multiple files into a library, we want Power Automate to grab them, convert them into PDFs and drop the published files, well, anywhere you like really. What we need to identify is where the files are coming from. Are they uploaded files, new files, attachments in an email, and how to trigger the flow process. Should they run immediately, at the end of the working day? Do you want to start the conversion yourself, etc.? Now this will be done in Power Automate. I will cover this step by step, but any user with Power Automate can do this. No expensive premium add-ons, no additional licenses, no technical bits here. I'm going to create flows using Office 365 Business Standard license myself. So what will we cover? Well, firstly, we're just going to prepare the environment, get it all set up. And then this will also require a OneDrive for Business location to temporarily store the files. And this is because OneDrive has the built-in PDF conversion feature we need. We'll then create an automated process, so as soon as you drop off the files, they will be converted. Where the automated process doesn't work for you, we'll create an instant flow. And this will be a slight variation on the process with some extra features, and it will trigger manually. We can adjust that to a scheduled flow to run frequently at certain times of the day. We can even adapt it to run from a Power App in case that is where you want to manage the content. If your documents are also coming from email attachments, I'll show you how we can process them using the same flow. And that means documents can come from different sources and be managed in one central place. And finally, I'll show you a sneaky trick on how you can run an instant flow from a hyperlink or even a button in Teams or on a web page. And this is just a nice, quick, simple way of doing this. From the Office start page, I'm going to launch a tab for each area where I want to work and see what is going on. So I will open Microsoft Teams, which is where I want users to drop off files. And this is a great place to manage email attachments, which I'll show later. I'll use a team called Test, and the files will be dropped in the general channel. If you're using SharePoint library, this flow will work in exactly the same way because the Files tab in Team Channels is actually a SharePoint library. So I'll open the Files area in SharePoint in a separate browser tab. As you can see, I'm in the Documents or Shared Documents library, and each channel is a folder in the library. While I'm here, I'm going to create another library where the published PDF files will be placed. So from the site content, I will click New, Document Library, and I will call it Published. Okay, I will open OneDrive in another browser tab. We need to send the files to OneDrive because OneDrive has the PDF conversion feature. The files will be there temporarily, but nevertheless I will create a new folder called PDF Creation, and that just keeps my OneDrive tidy. Finally, we'll launch Power Automate in another browser tab, and that's where we'll spend most of our time. There are PDF converting templates available, but I will do this completely from the beginning as it's cleaner for you to follow in the video. So I will create a new automated cloud flow and give it a very descriptive name. For the trigger, I will type SharePoint to view the SharePoint data connector triggers, and from the list I will select when a file is created, properties only. When the flow appears, I will choose the site my library is in. Now, what if the site you want is not in that list? This can happen. So go back to the SharePoint browser tab, right click the site icon in the top left corner and select copy link. So I'm using Microsoft Edge, so it's copy link. It's copy link address if you're using Google Chrome. Make sure you select enter custom value and paste the site address into the box. Okay, select the library name you want to use. Because the files will be dropped into the general channel, I will select the general folder in the library. Okay, click next step, and from the SharePoint data connector, select get file content. Select the site, then click in the file identifier box. From the dynamic content, scroll down the list of content properties and click identifier. New step. This one will connect to OneDrive so we can send a copy of the file. Choose OneDrive for Business for the OneDrive in Office 365. Select the action, create a file so we can transfer the document content into it. If you created a folder for these files, select the folder. I will select my new PDF creation folder. Click in the file name box, and in the dynamic content here, look in the when a file is created properties and select file name with extension. Click the file content, and from the get file content list of properties there, we'll grab the file content. Okay, now to convert it, so click next step. Again, from the OneDrive for Business data connector, select convert file. Click the file property. In the dynamic content window, find the create file header, there it is, and select the ID. Make sure the target type is PDF. Okay, now the PDF is created, we want to move that file into a place where we can group all our published files. So I'm going to stick it back in SharePoint. So click next step, and using the SharePoint data connector, select the create file action. Okay, we have two actions called create file. So to avoid confusion, click the steps ellipsis and choose rename. I will call this create published file. Select the site and library where you want the PDF to end up. I will choose the new published library in my test site. Click the file name property, and in dynamic content, view the convert file list as the header and select file name. Underneath that, add the file content. Finally, we want to delete the converted file from OneDrive. So add another step. Using the OneDrive for Business data connector, select delete file action. Click in the file property, and from the dynamic content, go down the list all the way down to the create file header and select ID. That's it. Save the flow and we will test it. I have 3 test documents here. The first is a simple document with text. The second contains style formatting, some images and a few hyperlinks. The third document is a 40 megabyte file that is actually one of my user guides, so I'm going to put that to the test. So I'm going to click test flow manually. Okay, now I will drop the files into the general files tab in Teams. Okay, now let us look at the flows dashboard where we can see if any of them have run. Okay, so the first 2 smaller files have run. The 40 megabyte file is taking a little bit longer. So after waiting some time, it took around about 19 minutes to complete. So that's around about 2 meg per minute, if you like. So here in the SharePoint published library are the PDF files. If I open them up, they all look accurate. The images are there, the hyperlinks work, and my 40 megabyte user guide is now a 2.5 megabyte PDF and even has the headers and footers as well as the body content. So I want to point out a few issues with the automated flow. One is against your flow limit. So let's say, for example, your flow limit is 2,000 runs per user per month. Every time someone drops in any number of files, that is a run. If they drop in files 30 times, that's 30 runs. So you need to be aware of that. Secondly, if you create a new document using the new button in the library, the file will actually create and then will run the PDF while it's blank, so the user won't even have an opportunity to write any content. And finally, unless you add this into the flow itself, it doesn't leave any room for content approval, so as soon as you drop the files in, they are processed immediately. So an alternative to this is to use an instant flow, so you can choose when the flow runs. For the flow to identify which files need converting and which files have been done, we'll create a choice column in the drop-off library that will identify the file's published status. You can set whatever values you like, but you'll need something like pending, completed, and one to choose which files to ignore. I'll call this offline. I'm going to set the default value to pending, so when we drop the files into the library they are pending to begin with, but you can change that before we action the flow. And you may need a choice for any files that failed conversion just in case, but I won't be covering that here. With the documents already in there, I will set up 2 for pending, and the larger one will be ignored. I'll mark that offline. Return to Power Automate. If you have created the automated flow from earlier, it's best to turn this off so it does not automatically fire when we drop documents in. Now create an instant flow, give it a name, and use the manually trigger a flow trigger. Add a SharePoint action, get files, properties only. Make sure it's files plural, as we want to go through every file in the library and process only those that are pending. Select the site library as before, and again I'm going to only choose the general folder. There is another option that allows me to include nested files within the folder. And I'm going to set this to yes to cater for email attachments, which we'll cover later. Now we will add another step using the control called apply to each. This action ultimately will loop through every document in the library. Click the property box and in the dynamic content select value, which holds the list of items. Inside the apply to each, click add an action to add another control action, and this one will be condition. This is where we will only process the files if the publish status is pending. So click the choose a value box on the left, and in the dynamic content select publish status value. It must be the content with the word value at the end, otherwise you are grabbing the wrong one. Check the middle box is set to equal to. Now click the choose a value box on the right and enter the word pending. The value is case sensitive, so make sure it is exactly as it is in your choice column. Now go inside the if yes box using the SharePoint connector. Select the get file content action like we did in the first flow. Select the site address and choose the identifier content. In fact, all the actions from here are exactly the same as the previous flow, so I will just whiz along this to the end. Now, once the conversion action is complete, we will add one more additional action to change the pending value to completed. Add an action, and using the SharePoint connector, select the Update File Properties action. Select the site and library. For the ID, select the ID content from the Get Files Properties Only header. The columns will appear below. From the same header, select the matching property name for the title and description and any other columns that are listed. This effectively is a way to say keep the value the same, and the set publish status value to completed. Save the flow and test it. I'll delete the previous PDF files first so I can check the results properly. So another manual test, but I don't need to drop any files in this time. I already set 2 of them to pending. So when I run this and wait for the little egg timers to finish, if I expand the apply to each and the condition, I can go through each file and see which ones have successfully been processed. So the first one didn't, but the second one did, and so did the third. Great. And if I switch to the document library, those 2 files have been marked as completed, and they are now in the published location. So it's all worked. Brilliant. With this structure of the instant flow, I can change the trigger to meet the different ways I want to start it. For example, I can delete the manual trigger and replace it with a schedule recurrence trigger. I can configure the schedule to run frequently, such as once a day. The frequency setting allows me to choose how frequent the period of time to run, so I can set this up to run 5:30 every evening each day. Another way you can run this instant flow is from your Power App. So if you're managing your drop-off library within an app, you can change the trigger to a Power App trigger. This will make it available to your Power App. All you have to do is add a button and action it to trigger your Power Automate flow. If your documents are coming by way of email, you can use the same instant flow to convert them to PDF. Each team channel has an email address. Get the channel's email link and forward the email to the channel. The attachments and email message are placed in the files library location for the channel, inside its own folder. If you remember, I enabled the option to look into subfolders in one of the actions. The flow can collect these files and convert them. You can also change the publish status for any attachments that are not to be converted. The last thing I want to show you is how we can create a quick publishing dashboard with a button on it to run the flow and place it in Teams. We'll start by creating a view that only shows the pending documents. Next, we'll create a site page. I will start with a blank one, but you can make really impressive dashboards with site pages. Down the left of the page, we can add the sections that divide the page into different columns. So let's remove the current section, and we'll add a 2-column section. And in the left section, we will add a web part connected to the library. And we'll use the new view so we can see only the documents pending. We'll set this to look in the general channel. On the right side, I will add a button. This will trigger the instant flow as it was created initially. The button needs a hyperlink, so I'll go to the home page of the flow here in Power Automate. In the address bar, I will grab the entire web address and copy it. I'm going to go back to SharePoint page and I'll paste the web address. At the very end of it, I'm going to remove the word details from the end of the address and replace it with the word run. That's the page complete and the button as well. So I'll publish the page and we'll add it to Teams so we can see it in that place where we need it. So back in Teams, click Add a tab, little plus sign, select SharePoint, choose Pages and select the page you want to use. There you go. With Pages added to Teams, you can keep your team members informed quickly and centrally, plus provide a convenient place to activate flows, forms, and many other Office 365 features. I've just looked at the thermometer, it is 33 degrees. I'm going now. But this video will no doubt open more questions on processing this, so drop me comments below in the video or contact me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. If there's enough demand, I'll do a follow-up video on this. Otherwise, enjoy your automation, stay cool, stay safe, and have fun. Can I go now, please?